Greetings, MBAP 518 International Business students. This is Dr. Jaros with a video explanation of how I graded your first exam. So let's look at question number 1. Yushan Bicycles lost money in Australia in 2015. The director of the Australian operation blamed headquarters for this. Why? Was he correct? Explain. Well, first of all, the Australian director named Hamilton, he blamed headquarters for the failures of 2015 and did so on a number of points. He noted that deliveries of bicycle products to Australia were uncertain and often did not comport to schedule. He argued that the transfer pricing model that headquarters used to charge the Australian operation for inventory and other services was unfair. He also argued that they imposed an unreasonable allocation of overhead costs on the Australian operation. He noted that there were glitches with the corporate information system. In other words, the corporate information system often failed to provide him with timely information. And also he argued that headquarters tended to favor other markets like Taiwan with resources. Was he correct about this? Okay, well, partially. All of the points he makes about the failures of headquarters are correct, at least according to the facts of the case, and they all bear on the profitability of the Australian operation. But I say partially because Hamilton's handling or running of the Australian operation was to blame as well. Hamilton's background did not prepare him well for this position. He understood the Australian retail market. He had a lot of experience in the retail market, but not the bicycle market. And as a result, he made some moves in the bicycle market that were ill-advised. For example, his efforts to build volume fast via low prices did not work. It did not build volume because he didn't understand how to sell bikes in the Australian market, and as a result, the company lost money. So the correct answer from my point of view is partially. And then you also, of course, you initially had to list why he had blamed headquarters to begin with. Now let's look at question number 2. If a global company is facing a market in which pressures for local responsiveness and integration are low, but pressures for innovation are high, what kind of industry is it operating in? What kind of strategy should it pursue? Explain. Well, first of all, as explained in the chapter reading, if local responsiveness and integration pressures are low, but innovation pressures are high, then this is characteristic of an international industry or an international market. Okay? And the proper strategy is the international strategy. The international strategy is designed to try to create and exploit innovations in product design or service design on a worldwide basis by utilizing all three means: scale economies, scope economies, and the arbitrage of national differences across countries. So basically, this is a strategy that involves creating a centralized research and development, marketing, and manufacturing hub, and then transferring new product innovations to the foreign subsidiaries, basically by a hub and spoke system, where key decisions are made at company headquarters, and product ideas and services are delivered, diffused out to subsidiaries that are located in foreign markets. However, the strategy is not foolproof. The strategy can be inefficient and not as responsive. It can be as more or less efficient than a global strategy and not as responsive to local consumer tastes and preferences as a multi-domestic strategy. All right, let's look at question number 3. If a company is thinking about expanding to a foreign country and does not take into account the different ways that countries can be distant from each other, what mistake might it make? Give an example from the article we read on this. Well, it could make the mistake of investing in the wrong country, in a country where it is not likely to make profits, or not as likely to make profits as if it had invested in another country. The article talks about 4 kinds of distance being in play here. Geographic distance, which is simply how many miles separate 2 countries. Cultural distance, which refers to differences in norms and values across countries. Administrative distance, which refers to differences in political systems across countries. And economic distance, which refers to whether 2 countries are at the same level of wealth or whether there's a wealth disparity among the countries. The country portfolio analysis model is particularly helpful here because it allows us to adjust for distance. And so regarding the second part of the question, where I asked you to give an example from the article, there's a discussion in the article about a fast food company that is thinking about a US-based company that is thinking about expanding its operations into other countries. Okay? If you use the CPA model but don't adjust for distance, it appears that Japan is the best place to invest. But if you adjust the CPA model for distance factors, then it becomes apparent that Canada is by far the best place to expand into, the place where we're most likely to earn profits. You could have also talked about the Star television service in China and in other parts of Asia. That was a good example as well. Last but not least, let's look at question number 4. Question number 4 says, what challenges is the IMAX Corporation facing that are causing it to consider expanding to the BRIC countries? Which one should it invest in first? Explain. Well, there are 2 basic competitive challenges that IMAX is facing in the North American market as of the time of the case. First of all, the United States market, box office market, was stagnant at the time. You know, the market for people going to the movies and spending money in movie theaters was stagnant, and that was due to competition from other sources of watching movies, like Netflix. Streaming services were starting to catch on, so that was cutting into the theater attendance, and also DVD services like Redbox. So that was putting a pressure on the margins that movie theater companies were earning, and it resulted in flat attendance at the movies. And IMAX is located in movie theaters. Also, movie theaters and other companies were starting to see the profits that IMAX was making and entering that space themselves. For example, the Dolby Sound Corporation came out with their own large screen format called Dolby Cinema, which was a competitor to IMAX. And then movie theaters themselves, movie chains themselves, were coming out with their own large screen formats. Like Cinemark has their XD Extreme Theater. And these are direct competitors to IMAX and cutting into IMAX profits too. Okay. As far as the second part of the question was concerned, there's no right answer. You could have made an argument for any of the countries: Brazil, Russia, China, India. You just had to give me a good reason. Some people lost points because they just said something like, I believe they should invest in the China market, without explaining why. Okay? So, you had to explain that. But if you did that, then I didn't tend to take off any points. Anyway, this is how I graded exam number 1. These are the ideas that I was looking for when I was reading your answers to the questions. And I hope this was helpful to you in understanding the score you earned on the exam.